proper land acquisition, planning and development, agroforestry, bioconstruction, and temporary dwellings. Presented by Antoni Fernandes, environmental and human rights activist, member of the UN Human Rights Council. Hosted by Radha Cohen. This is ConsciousEarthAlliance.com.
Okay, we've got some strong words here: safe, crisis. Yes, crisis. We're in a climate crisis. Okay, it's not a hoax. Maybe an economic crisis, maybe a geopolitical crisis, definitely a political crisis. So that's self-explanatory. Safe zone, okay. Health, self-explanatory. Affordability, hey, it's much better to grow your own food. Survival, okay. Freedom, obvious. Boycott, very important. I personally, all my life, did protests. I was a protest organizer, but I'm starting to believe that protests are not as effective and will not be as effective as before. We need general boycotts. We need to stop buying their products in order to dismantle them. That's the only way we're going to be able to change the system. Is this possible? Next slide, please. It's not only possible, we're living in an unnatural, nature is our essence. And we're living in an unnatural, totally unnatural natural environment, away from our natural environment. I mean, we're monkeys. We came from monkeys, okay? We have disconnected. We've been centralized. We didn't feel it because we were hypnotized. We were even all indigenous once, all tribes decentralized. Now we are centralized in a system that is crumbling and corrupt. An empire run by people very different from us and evil, okay? More recent history, I believe we inherited all of this corruption and inefficiency from the end of the Roman Empire, because they refined politics, they created politicians, the first corporations were established in the Roman Empire. They created centralization, go out, conquer, rape, kill, and then collect taxes and send to Rome. That's what we're living today with Washington, Paris, Tokyo, centralized systems. And everybody in the middle is cheating us, okay? But can we really escape the empire? Next slide, please. Of course we can. It would be shame on us if we think that we can. Right here in Brazil, we have one of the world's most successful case study on off-system living. We have slave enclaves still, some of them 400 years old. In Brazil received, imported, bought, and sold in West Africa, and captured and brought the most slaves in any part of the African slaves from any part of the world here. And they suffered a lot of hardship, okay? Too much to talk about and too painful to talk about it in this quick talk here. But the reason I'm showing this is because it can serve as a model. I work with them because I work with human rights, and they are unbelievable. They are resistors. Their ancestors escaped. Some made it, some didn't make it, established wonderful communities. And after emancipation, they stayed. They're still off grid. They're still off grid 100 years later and in abundance. So let's look at this art here. This is kind of what Black history. What you see here, the men that are dressed like, dressed better, they're Afro-Americans descendants also, ex-slaves. They were usually bought by Portuguese or Spanish abolitionists and then freed. And then these men would go and help the escaped slaves that were hiding out in their compounds, their slave enclaves. And they helped along with the Jesuits, because barter network for safe zones, decentralized communities is very important. And they needed that. They were hiding. They were in a lot worse shape than us. So the Jesuits, who even had a bad reputation, some of them were very good. And the Jesuits, until today, I believe, had the largest intelligence agency, spy agents in the world, because the Pope would send the priests out to other countries to they write to with the conquistadors to evangelize, but they would write information. Well, there's gold here in this country and in this region, and a botanist priest would draw a flora and say, well, this is botanical. This can help cure disease back there in Rome, you know? So some of them would help these. That's how they survived. They practiced sustainable agriculture because they couldn't slash and burn because they would get caught. It would leave a clearance, and the people that would go to kill them, because when they got caught, they were killed, to show as an example so the other slaves do not escape. Okay, they would help them barter because there was abundance, nature's abundance, and they had extra products. So that's how they were able to survive. They respected, because Africans and the indigenous have something that we don't have. We don't respect our elders. We don't expect our ancestral wisdom, but they did that. They also were so welcoming. It wasn't only them, the escaped slaves. They accepted the indigenous that were being exterminated and were hiding, running away from being killed by the white man, by the colonizer. And they also accepted white people, the outcasts in society, the revolutionaries, the people like us, the people that didn't believe in the system. Or maybe they may have been criminals that were escaping justice, but they would welcome them. They would welcome them, and they lived in harmony. Also, everybody talks about Africa, but Africa has so many tribes and ethnic backgrounds and languages, but they were so good at community building that aside from these outcasts and the indigenous that didn't speak their language, none of the Africans spoke the same language. Okay, very few, because the families were separated, just like the Holocaust, right? So there was people from Angola, people from the Congo, and they had to create a common language in order to create relationships and protect each other in these communities. So we need to learn from them, because they had to learn the same things I'm going to try to talk to you guys about now. Location is important, resources, good water, soil, herbal. They cured themselves through herbal medicines till today. Okay, naturopathy and defense. Next slide. They had to practice to get in shape in order to be able to escape, because sometimes they had to do hand-in-hand combat. So today it's known as capoeira around the world. It's called Brazilian martial arts. It's called Brazilian martial arts. And what they would do is, to get in shape, they would fight with each other. But then what happened is that when the men with the guns would come by to do their routine check on the slave quarters, American slaves were not allowed drums because it's a sacred instrument. So it was punishment. But in Brazil, they allowed drums. So they made an instrument called a berimbau with a coconut and a bamboo and some string and the drums. When the men with the guns came, as they were practicing to get in shape, practicing fighting, practicing to escape, then the slave watching would say, hey, the men are coming with the guns. And then they would fake it like they're not fighting, and they would do a dance. And that's what capoeira is. So they got in shape in order for this great escape. Next, please. Okay, how to find qualified land. Okay, real estate agents, the world over, most of the world, real estate agents have an ambiguous law that does not protect the buyer. It's called fiduciary relationship. What this means is that the real estate agent has a fiduciary relationship with his client. And who is his client? The seller. So you must be very careful if you're looking for land with a real estate agent. I don't do that anymore. I do it myself. Also because I got experience and I learned a little bit about the natural world that helps me. And I'll explain to that later. But anyways, in the old days, I used to use real estate agency, but I used to say, I want to pay the commission. I want you to work for me, not for the seller. But what happened, because the world is getting more and more corrupt, today real estate agents have a whole list of prime clients, rich clients that come, speculators, and they just give regular people like us the bad lands, and their clients that they have on a list, they give them the opportunities in the good lands. So real estate agents, only if you know a good one. Biodiversity is key, okay? Any land that has dense biodiversity produces more water, produces better soil, produces pure air. So you can grow like in an agroforest with less human energy. Nature, when there's a lot of biodiversity, everything grows and everything is abundant, including water, which is important. This is from cities and coastal areas. This is very important. Not enough time to talk. We can talk after or post-conference. Adjoining nature preserve, if you can find that, that's perfect. Organic soil, medium altitude, mountain area, slope topography, preferably a valley, safe zone, good neighbors, zero zoning or minimal zoning restrictions, very important. Distance from mining or industrial activities, past or present. You don't want to buy poison land, okay? So that's important. Avoid flood zones, and very important, quality gravity-fed water. Next slide, please. Okay, like I said, dense biodiversity equals abundance. Abundance equals freedom. Superfoods, for example, here in the tropics, on the right, you see their hibiscus and what other people would call, a layperson would call weeds. But that's foraging. When you have a high concentration of biodiversity, you can live from the forest. You can live from what grows there, the perennials and flowers and what other people call weeds. And we have a lot what are called superfoods here. Next slide, please. Okay, Hippocrates, let food be thy medicine and let medicine be thy food. Hasn't that stood the test of time? Okay, there's lots of herbal that we can either forage in the forest or propagate if they're becoming extinct, because extinction is very real. And it pisses me off when people say that it's not, that it's a hoax. Okay, land grabs. What are these land grabs about? Bill Gates buying land, Bezos buying land. The Bushes, after Jeb Bush lost the presidential election, they sent him to Sao Paulo, Brazil, to buy as much Brazilian land as possible. Luckily, he was kicked out. But he went straight to Chile, and they bought a territory down on the tip, okay, close to Antarctica. Indigenous territory. Was a gold mine, and they own that gold mine today. Then they sent the granddaughter, Bush, Grandpa sent the granddaughters, and they bought a piece of Paraguay because they were kicked out of Brazil. So I say, occupy now. Occupy Wall Street, occupy London. I think that's over. That's history. It's occupy now. We must occupy rural areas to protect the family farmer, to turn people over, show them what glyphosate does, what Roundup, how bad it is, and teach them how to grow organic and help these people and occupy. That's what we have to occupy now, rural territories. Next slide. Okay, this is from a documentary that me and the the president of the Ayurveda Association, we participated in. He was the PhD, and I was like the mad eco-terrorist guy. So he quoted this: Brazil medicinal plants are already surpassed and will replace all that havoc, become extinct in the Himalayas. This will save Ayurveda and other ancient natural healing traditions. Next slide. Okay, where? Okay, water is the most vital basic need, not just for humans. The natural world produces it in a very interconnected, cooperative way, especially when there's abundant biodiversity. Where is water in its purest form? Mountain rainforest. Water, when pure, cures, energizes, and makes us happy, and transfers intelligence to us also, okay? Water, I don't know if you ever seen, but water is magnetic. You ever see two drops in the shower? They unite. It's magnetic. It attracts, and it attracts us too. We have lost that. These are things that I have learned by observing nature and by the indigenous and the shamans. We have to get back to nature because that's where we came from. Mountains are spiritual, majestic, safe. Next slide. Okay, finding the land. This is a process that I just went. It's very difficult to find land, so that's why I want to help everybody with things that I have learned to make it easier. This is Shiva, my horse, and this is how you find land. You go out on four-wheel drive vehicles, you go out on a horse, you go out trekking, and this is how you find it. It takes years sometimes. But this one I've had my eye on for 2 decades, actually, because I know the region. And then all of a sudden, no one wanted to sell. It's a family, huge family homestead, and no one wanted to sell, but it fell on my lap because, and I'll explain later. Next. Okay, very important, gravity-fed water. Here in Brazil, they have a saying that if you find land that is sloped in a spring up higher, it's like winning the lottery. But since they told me that you can't steal pictures from Google's because you can get sued, then I just put these leprechauns here because it's a very lucky thing if you can find a slope property where you can irrigate and use for either your dwellings, water coming down from a high slope. Okay, next slide. Land and the surroundings. Okay, you got to have a checkpoint. Okay, these are all the criterias that I said before, and this is what our land here, where we're doing a community checkpoint. You got to use the checkpoints. These checkpoints all check. Go ahead, please. Landscape planning and design. Okay, even with natural springs at high elevation, like we were talking about, the digging of lakes and creeks is good. The latter following the contour of the land. Reason, beauty and ample distribution of water. Rain is distilled water. It's the best quality water that exists. So it's very good to collect rainwater. Even if you have many springs, it's good to collect because it will percolate, good quality water percolate, and then it'll end up coming down from your spring. It's a wonderful, magical thing. Okay, here is the last off grid on the left, land that we lived. I brought my children, 2 of my kids up there. It was a wonderful experience. I had to drag. We were kicking and arguing. They both didn't want to leave their friends in the cities. And then today they thanked me because they're in college. They say they learned more 10 years in nature than they did in university. So what you do is you see this over here on the left is a crevice, and these were old rivers. These were rivers. So when we go into an area, we have a mission. If we're blessed with a nice piece of land, we have to try to recuperate rivers that were lost like that. And that was what we did in that. Go ahead, another slide. And then enters machinery for execution after professional planning and design. You build ponds and lakes and even beautiful biological pools like that. Curvature of the land must be calculated with precision. Now, like I said, very difficult. You can find land with all those qualities and all those traits that I said before. It's very difficult, but you can find it. But it may not be beautiful land. So don't worry about beauty, because beauty can always be made by the nice ponds, the lakes, the curvatures, the way you plan. So beauty, try not to let beauty interrupt in your decision for picking the right land, because beauty is not the most important trait, just like humans. Okay, go. Okay, all those qualities I said before. I'm sorry about this. I'm dyslexic. This is like my visual aid to make my brain work correctly, but it's because I need to explain an invisible step here, okay? All the other ones were scientific, geometrical, topographical, hydro, geographic, biological, exact disciplines, right? But I need to explain this so it'll make your process easier. Okay, the natural world. Trees, plants, from the minuscule bacteria to the 1,000-year-old tree, okay? They are all social beings. We must understand that. That's science. That's consensus, okay? I believe that all within her is even more perfect social being than us humans. Any gardener, farmer, or shamans know this. But I have to explain something to you all now that is invisible in a very limited time. Like air, electricity, radio waves, spirit, and atoms are all invisible. But like atoms can turn into atomic energy, such is the power of this last step. In fact, Einstein knew a lot about this. These computers, I think they're listening to me as I'm talking. They're algorithms. You guys know how that works. But all of a sudden, I'm preparing for this, and pops up this Albert Einstein quotation that is exactly what I was writing here. And it's look deep into nature, and then you will understand everything better. Okay. And that's, next slide will explain that. Okay. Trees, plants, flora, fauna, bacteria, they are super intelligent, okay? They have memory, they count, they know mathematics. That's scientific consensus. From my observation of natural world for decades, I believe that bees even know geometry because they make a pretty cool beehive, okay? The earth is a living organism, just like us, okay? Ants, I can't even start to talk about ants because they are like engineers. They are great cooperators, great administrators. We can't lose ants. We can't. I don't have the patience to listen to people that don't believe in climate change and don't believe that if we lose, for example, ants and bees tomorrow, the human race will become extinct in 6 months. That is a fact. So we have to try to make these people understand that climate change, extreme weather, extinction is very real, and we need to turn that around. Okay, the trees. We're talking about a very intelligent system of which we belong to, but have been separated. You go like this, like we're here and nature is there. That's called ego. Something happened in our evolution or our degeneration that we got separated. We need to reconnect. Trees, through a fungal network under the earth, they send out electric charges that form language, enters the roots of the trees and form language. Trees communicate. They have a language. And when they see imminent danger, they alert the other trees. Trees, when danger does come and someone saws off a tree and it dies violently, they actually, depending on the stump of that tree, depending on the species, they nurse it for centuries, depending on the tree. How do they do it? The same way human beings do transfusions. Through the root system, they send a glucose solution with some healing solutions, because nature is full of cures, and they keep it in intensive care, let's say, and they keep it alive for centuries. So look, I'm not saying all this because it sounds romantic, okay? I'm saying this because I learned this from shamans and it changed everything in my life, okay? Nature is us. We are not from Earth. We are Earth. The world, it provides everything we need: oxygen, food, the water, all the vitamins. And it's, I mean, we're 70% water. The planet is 70% water. The same amount of salt that's in the world's ocean is the same amount that's in our veins. The heart doesn't function properly without the brain. The brain doesn't function without the heart. The lungs, it's all interconnected. We are living organisms that are part of the living organism. We're not separated from them. We are them. We are her. I call her because here we call Pachamama, it's a mother. And we need to save this mother because we don't have a grandmother. So that's why I really believe in this movement. Okay. Move on, please. Okay, so here are the invisible principles I was talking about for finding the right land. Never call her property. Never mention the word purchase or buy. The last time social beings were bought and sold was a couple hundred years ago, and unfortunately continues until today. It's called slavery. Land is not a slave. It is not material. It is alive. When you go to visit a piece of land, before you go to qualify to see if she meets the criteria, as I mentioned before, ask her for permission to enter. Communicate your intent. When you do this, you best be honest, because remember, she remembers. She has memory. Do you think that a system that feels, counts, and has developed such intelligence throughout millions of years, in the case of rainforests, are the oldest ecosystems on the planet, 70 million years. Do you think that someone 70 million years old doesn't feel or understands your intent? When your pet dog, or my mother, I could never lie to my mother when I was a kid. She always knew what my intent was, okay? So of course she does. Even the underground fungal system knows what you're about because they know language. Surrender. Number 3, surrender to that land and promise her that you will be her steward or guardian. If you do this, you may not have so much work and energy, because it's very difficult to find land, of finding that land. When I started practicing this after shamans and the indigenous taught me this, things just started like falling on my lap practically. But years ago, it was very, very difficult. It would take years. So maybe if you practice this, the land may just come to you. Now, okay, you may be thinking that this is esoteric, mystical, divine intelligence, creation, God, religion. Call me crazy or whatever, but religion. I studied with Northern Irish nuns, and they used to make us remember Latin words. And religion is a perfect example. The Latin definition for religion is religar. Religar, the definition is turn on to a more secure energy. The need to reconnect to energy. Religar, it means to act. To act. It's call me a religious zealot, a born again. I'm an eco-spiritualist, but please, this is stuff that only the indigenous know that I practice, and it makes finding the right piece of land a lot more easier if you think that she is part of you. Okay, then she will welcome you. Next slide, please. Okay, bioconstruction. Okay, I'm just showing here that green roofs are fantastic. They for your area, for the temperate climates. Okay, because I needed to include something from that. Next one. Okay, if there's a rubber that comes in roll rubber, real pure rubber that I can't buy here, but maybe you guys can buy in Europe. But I've even thought about, and rubber grows in consortium, so it helps sequester CO2. So that's a good ethical roof to use. But with real rubber, natural rubber, I had an idea, getting old tires and making roof tiles. And then they overlay them one on top of each other. That's something cool you guys can do in Europe. That's just an idea, but I haven't done that yet. But that's a good material to use. Green roofs are very good. Next, please. How much time do we have? Earth homes.
5 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, very good. Actually, you have 6 minutes. Maybe you can take 2 minutes extra.
Okay. Her earth homes are from the land. Go to the next. You just use the mud that's on your land. When you build the lakes, that's perfect mud for you to use. This is Monica, my friend, who's actually today building her earth home, and she sent me these pictures. Muds and sticks makes it quick. Nature provides, and the home, as the earth, is alive. Okay, earth homes are alive. Okay, next slide. Okay, this is just one of those insights I get in nature. Okay, this is the daughter of Monica, and she's helping her. She was helping her last week and doing the putting the mud on the wall. And then I see her eyes close, and I remembered I went back to my mother's womb. And because when you're in an earth home, you feel like you're in a mother's womb. It's so cozy, it's unbelievable. So I got an insight one time that I want to share with you. And I see, because I got an insight that when you're a fetus, why do we only have prints at the palms of our feet and our hands? Why don't we only have fingerprints and palm prints? I believe that a fetus, when they want to come out in the world, or during the process, the 9 months, as they push on their mother's uterus, I think that's the same imprint as their mother's uterus. That's just like something crazy that I wanted to share with you. And I just think it's a lovely thing for whole families to build these earth homes together. It's a family affair here in Brazil. This is a picture, another friend that just built her earth home. She says, hey, I got things growing on my walls. And she sent me this picture 2 weeks ago. Earth homes are alive. They're priceless. Living inside an earth home without unnatural materials like plastic and steel is a fantastic experience and livelihood. Go ahead, please. This is a basket technique, real easy. Of course, we have bamboo here. It's plentiful. It's the easiest product to use. But any type of wood works. And because when you cover it with plaster, it doesn't rot, because there's not enough oxygen is what makes the rotting process. So easy technique, basket technique. Move forward, please. Super adobe, okay? They say NASA invented these bags, but they say NASA invented a whole lot of things. Go ahead on the next one, please. These are these sausage type bags, all right? They're compacted, very important to get the ground level, the foundation straight, okay? And I think, next slide, please. These look alike, like the war trenches, like what the Army uses in war trenches, doesn't it? So that's where I believe this originated from. But it's a great, huh?
These are sausages, they're sausages?
Yeah, they're the size of like a giant sausage.
Yeah, but I mean, just, inside they have earth, they have
mud,
sand.
Mud and sand, okay? And they just pack it. Now, so that's what I believe. I think this technology came from war, okay? And they make wonderful, wonderful, comfortable, cozy. You feel so good inside these types of homes. Oh, they put a strand of barbed wire, very important. That's why they don't collapse, okay? A strand of barbed wire hole between each sausage is what makes them not collapse. Okay, next slide, please. Observe that this home has 2 floors. Okay, next slide. Even stairs are made with these bags and clay, mud inside of them. Okay, next. Okay, this is something I hope no one ever tries, okay? I had a bit of experience here. I saw some friends in a kindergarten building a dome adobe home. And I said, man, there's climate change. The rains are more intense now. It's not sprinkle anymore. This type of construction is for arid climates like Africa, not for rainforest. That roof can collapse. And wouldn't you know it, a few months after, the roof collapsed. Dome roofs of just this material are very dangerous. I don't recommend them. Go ahead.
My dear Amar, you know, your time is almost up. It's up, really.
Okay, like I said, I will make this link available. Let's go to the Q&A, and if you guys wish. And it's too intense. It's just too many types of bioconstruction. And so I welcome the Q&A now.
Yes, so really one question here from Chandrika is, can you please tell us more about zero zoning restrictions?
Yes, the more developed countries, they got all crazy with all these laws and what you can do and what you can't do on your land, which is a whole bunch of BS. First thing, these earth homes are ecological, ethical. They're ethical. That's what people should build with, okay? So it's what Elena was saying. It turned all corporate. So these corporations that sell the steel, that sell the plastics, that sell the blocks, they bribe the politicians that make, or the lobbies that write the laws, and then they create all these zoning laws. In Brazil and some parts of Latin America, rural properties have zero zoning restrictions. You don't have to go to the city because it's not the city and get a plan. But I'm sure that in other countries, there's many zoning restrictions. You got to go to the zoning board and say, before buying land, and say, this is the land, what can I do with it? Because you may buy something where you won't be able to build anything on. Almost 80% chance, okay? But in this part of the world, there's none of that exists. I'll just emphasize more on what I've learned with the indigenous that'll help all of you a lot. You have to understand, the day that humans understand that the natural world is of superior intelligence than us, okay? Superior intelligence, and that it's a social being. If we emerge in that natural world, meditate in it, sing chants in it, glorify it, pay reverence to it, reconnect with it. That will make everything much easier. We need to reconnect. That natural world, the day that humans understand that, is the day that our intelligence will expand. Because nature is all giving, all loving, all abundant, and sharing. Nature will share that and this has happened to me, that intelligence with you. You will grow. You will get fantastic ideas. Negative ions. Nature is mostly water. Water has negative ions. So negative ions makes your thinking clear. So emerge.
Amar, we have your website here. And so anyhow, people can always send the questions later on as well. So far, we need to close this session at the moment, but we want to thank you a lot for really sharing your such a long-term expertise and your knowledge and really hand-on experience that you shared with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.